Is being a graphic designer an easy job? T's only difficult if you don't like being at the edge of your own abilities. Most graphic designers don't stay stagnant, or that's what I'd like to think anyway, but are instead constantly pushing themselves to be better at what they do. This isn't simply to have a competitive edge, but it's because they enjoy looking into the history of their craft, of what other designers around the world are doing, and coming up with increasingly unique solutions to the problems they are presented. It's like trying to constantly beat your high score. The stress and worry and criticism are all things you learn to deal with as time goes by. Normally criticism is the first thing, as you know who to listen to, most other designers and the few rare clients with taste, and who to ignore. Most clients, though it's always worth hearing what they have to say and admitting when they're right. The more professional you become, the harder it is for these things to get through. But it's fun, oh man, it's fun. The challenges are ones you equip yourself against through study, thought, process and experience. You learn to think in creative ways quickly as you figure out what works best for you. Creativity can be broken down to a process, but not in the ways most people think. It's not simply draw this, draw that, mock this, bam, beautiful design. It's more like heaps of research, heaps of drawing, heaps of thinking. Oh hey, there's an idea that might work. It's loose, but it works when you know how you work. It's hard when you don't respect your skills, knowledge and experience, when you take on clients that aren't fun to deal with or projects that are boring, which some simply are, or when you stay in the same place, when you stick to the same style, instead of just using your own voice. One goes out of fashion, the other will always find ears upon which to land. Most of all, it's exciting. Looking at good design and the problems it's trying to solve is damn exciting. You see incredibly clever solutions, that are often innovative and pretty. Which brings me to my last point, it's pretty. You spend your time looking at, thinking about and making pretty things. There's nothing hard about that. How difficult is graphic design? That can be a hard one to answer, given how large a field it is. Consider this. Graphic design, distilled down to its essence, can be thought of as problem solving. How do I fit all this information into a smaller space? Solve the problem. How do I create a compelling logo for this small business? Solve the problem. How do I design a website for this publishing company? Solve the problem. I studied design in college. Over the course of 3 years, I learned various things. Color theory, why certain colors make you feel a certain way, what colors work with other colors, etc. Design theory, how to lay out a page, how to use white space effectively, how to use space, typography, how to utilize different fonts for different purposes, how different fonts impact a design, and on. Was learning it difficult? Not especially, although some people may have an easier time than others, depending on how much you enjoy design. And that, right there, is the key. How much do you enjoy design? If you're like me, then the answer is, quite a lot. If you truly enjoy something, then it's not a question of how hard it is. It's not even a question at all. Design is something you feel a need to do. You find yourself thinking of new ideas, new ways of creating, new ways of expressing a vision. At the end of the day, you realize it's something you'd be doing anyhow, even if no one paid you. So, to answer your question, no. Design is not hard, it's fun, it's often frustrating, it's sleepless nights, it's those aha moments, it's that twinkle in your eye when you've shown something, and you know it's awesome. It's knowing that hundreds of thousands are seeing something you created. It's feeling exhausted trying to explain to someone exactly why this font is so cool. It's having that sneaky feeling that you're being paid to play all day on a laptop doing fun stuff. It's pouring your heart and soul into a design, and having some fool say nope, I want the logo bigger, and I don't like this idea. It's throwing out your ideas, and starting from scratch. It's all those things and more. Hard? Depends on what you think hard is. I think hard is doing back-end coding. My brain just isn't wired for that sort of thing. Hard is doing construction work all day. Hard is being an electrician. Hard as being a brain surgeon. Graphic design done cheaply is easy, but design done well is far from simple and requires patience and well-honed skill sets. Design is a very broad term: 3D design, print design, branding design, interior design, layout design, etc., so the level of difficulty will of course vary. While natural artistic ability is beneficial for someone considering entry into a design field, even the most talented artists would have a difficult time creating a strong logo, for example. It's a different art form and requires a learned set of skill sets. I'm not saying a notice can't create a good logo, but most of the time the opposite is true. I myself specialize in brand identity design, print design and logo design. When I first started out as a freelance designer, I thought I was a strong designer, but when I look back at some of my initial creations, they are awful. It wasn't until much experience and practice in the area, and improved knowledge, that I became better and have been able to increase my pricing. It seems everyone these days considers themselves a designer, because they've dabbled a bit in Photoshop. Etsy designers, or folks on Fiverr offering $50 logos, all despite not having any real knowledge of things like typography, layout, color psychology, or an understanding that design is much more than creating a pretty-looking graphic. Since there are so many facets of design, it's impossible to be an expert in all areas. Instead, if you're looking into getting in the field, I recommend focusing in a couple of areas, rather than trying to be a 3D artist, branding designer, web designer, print designer, etc. After you narrow your focus, learn everything you can, absorb tips from the best in those particular industries, read books and blogs, watch videos, don't expect to be good right off the bat, accept criticism, learn your software in and out, build a strong portfolio, be reputable, brand yourself, etc. Best of luck if you're seeking a job in the design field. It's a very saturated industry and difficult to make good money in many areas: print, logo design, etc. Being a coder is probably the most profitable. A lot of folks make the mistake of thinking they can become a freelancer and make a ton of money. It's not easy and requires a lot of self-motivation and wearing of many hats. So in summary, design is not easy, but can be an enjoyable profession because of the creativity involved. It's just not for everyone.